Meghan Markle made her first husband agree to a pregnancy contract to make sure that she was afforded every possible luxury if she gave birth to their child.
For 15 years, he said absolutely nothing, not one word, not one interview, not a single public statement, social media post, or emotional outburst, while the entire world dissected, debated, and dramatized every chapter of Meghan Markle's life, from her Hollywood hustle to her royal wedding, from the Sussex exit to the Netflix deal. One man remained completely, almost eerily, silent. That man is Trevor Engelson. And now, after a decade and a half of calculated quiet, something has shifted. A resurfaced exchange, 3 words reportedly spoken in private, has detonated across the internet with the force of a slow-burning fuse finally reaching its powder keg. And at the very center of the explosion, Prince Harry, and a name nobody expected to be dragged into this story, Archie. So here is the question already setting comment sections on fire across every platform. Why now? After 15 years of silence, why is Trevor Engelson's name suddenly everywhere? What did he say? And why, of all things, did it reportedly leave Prince Harry completely speechless? Stay with this story, because the deeper you go, the more layers you uncover. And trust us, the layers are extraordinary. The man the internet forgot, until now. Let's start with who Trevor Engelson actually is, because a significant portion of the audience now discovering his name knows him only as one thing: Meghan Markle's ex-husband. But that single label does not begin to capture the full picture of a man whose quiet life has become one of the most intriguing counter-narratives in the entire royal saga. Trevor Engelson is a film and television producer, born and raised in Great Neck, New York. He built his career in Hollywood the old-fashioned way, grinding through the entertainment industry, developing projects, building relationships, and establishing himself as a legitimate creative force behind the camera. His production credits include the 2012 film Grimm's Snow White and several television development projects. He was not a celebrity in the traditional sense. He was not chasing fame or building a personal brand. He was a working industry professional doing exactly what working industry professionals do. He met Meghan Markle in 2004. She was then a young, ambitious actress navigating the brutal uncertainty of Hollywood auditions, small roles, and the relentless rejection that defines that industry for anyone trying to break through. They were, by most accounts, 2 people with enormous drive, enormous ambition, and an enormous amount of work ahead of them, building their futures side by side. Their relationship lasted approximately 7 years. 7 years. Think about that for a moment. That is not a brief Hollywood romance that burned bright and faded fast. 7 years is a real, sustained, deeply woven relationship. They traveled together. They supported each other's careers through the grinding uncertainty of an industry that offers no guarantees. And in 2011, they stood before their closest friends and family on a beach in Jamaica and said their vows. By all visible accounts at that moment, they were solid. They were the couple that people looked at and thought, they've got this. But something changed. And what changed, and how it changed, is at the heart of everything being debated online right now. The collapse of a chapter, and the questions it left behind. By 2013, it was over. The marriage between Meghan Markle and Trevor Engelson had officially ended. The official story, the publicly accepted explanation, centers on distance and demanding careers. Meghan was in Toronto, filming the legal drama Suits, the show that would ultimately launch her into a different stratosphere of visibility and set the stage for everything that followed. Trevor remained in Los Angeles. Long-distance relationships are brutally hard under normal circumstances. Long-distance relationships, when both partners are consumed by high-pressure careers in a fiercely competitive industry, they are even harder. But the official explanation only tells part of the story. Because what circulated afterward, in biographies, in behind-the-scenes accounts, and eventually across every corner of the internet, was something considerably more jarring than simply, they grew apart. The claim that has refused to die, the detail that continues to resurface every single time Meghan Markle's name trends online, is the allegation that she returned her engagement ring and wedding band to Trevor not in person, not with a conversation, not with the kind of closure that a 7-year relationship and a 2-year marriage might warrant, but by mail. Now pause on that for a second. Not a phone call, not a meeting, not even a letter. The rings, symbols of years of shared life, shared struggle, shared dreams, allegedly sent back through the postal system like a returned package. Whether that account is entirely accurate, partially accurate, or has been embellished through years of retelling is genuinely impossible to know from the outside. What is undeniable is that this detail has become one of the most discussed, debated, and divisive pieces of the Meghan Markle narrative that exists online. And it matters to this story because it establishes something crucial. It establishes the foundation of the public's fascination with Trevor Engelson as a figure, not as a villain, not as a victim, but as a man who was left behind by one of the most dramatic life transformations in modern celebrity history. And here's the question that has been simmering for years. What does a man who witnessed all of that, who knew Meghan before the cameras, before the crowns, before the carefully constructed public image, actually think about everything that unfolded? For 15 years, Trevor Engelson refused to answer that question publicly, until something slipped through. And when it did, it sent shockwaves across the internet that are still being felt right now. Bethany Frankel, a text message, and 3 words that changed everything. This is the moment the story shifts. This is where the temperature in the room drops by 10 degrees. Because what happened next, and how it came to light, is the kind of detail that sounds almost too perfectly calibrated to be accidental. In 2025, television personality and media figure Bethany Frankel revealed something that she had apparently held on to for years: a private exchange, a text message, a moment of direct communication between herself and Trevor Engelson that took place shortly after Meghan Markle and Prince Harry went public with their relationship in 2016. Cast yourself back to that moment. November 2016. Kensington Palace issues an unprecedented public statement confirming that Prince Harry is in a relationship with Meghan Markle and demanding that the press treat her with respect and dignity. The world collectively loses its mind. Every entertainment journalist, every royal commentator, every casual observer of celebrity culture is asking the same question. Is this real? Is this serious? And most importantly, is she going to marry a prince? Bethany Frankel, apparently as consumed by this question as everyone else, did something very direct. She reached out to Trevor Engelson, the man who knew Meghan better than almost anyone alive at that point. And she asked him straight out, "Do you think she'll marry him?" Simple, direct, loaded with curiosity. And the response she received was not what anyone would have predicted. Trevor Engelson did not respond with bitterness. He did not respond with anger. He did not unload the emotional weight of a failed marriage, a painful divorce, or the strange experience of watching someone you once shared your entire life with suddenly appear on the arm of a British prince. Instead, he sent back 3 words. 3 words. "Oh, she'll close." That's it. That is the statement that has been ricocheting across social media, podcasts, royal commentary forums, and entertainment platforms ever since Bethany Frankel shared it. 3 words: calm, measured, almost businesslike in their delivery, and devastating in their implication. Do you understand what makes those 3 words so extraordinarily powerful in the context of everything we now know? Let's break it down. Because the internet has been doing exactly this for months, and it is worth taking the time to truly understand why this particular response hit differently than anything Trevor Engelson had ever said, or more accurately, never said, before. Oh, she'll close. Unpacking. The statement that broke the internet. In sales terminology, in business, in negotiation culture, to close means to seal the deal, to finish the transaction, to convert the opportunity into a result. When you say someone will close, you are saying they are the kind of person who sees an objective and does not stop until they have achieved it. You are describing someone with laser-focused determination, an ability to read situations with precision, and the relentless drive to convert ambition into reality. Trevor Engelson did not say, "I think it might work out." He did not say, "She really likes him," or "She seems happy." He did not offer the kind of warm, ambiguous sentiment that someone reflects on a past partner with emotional distance. He offered a cold, clean, clinical observation. He essentially said, "She identified an objective, and she will achieve it. Full stop." And that, right there, is exactly what set the internet on fire. Because here is the thing about calm, measured, almost detached observations. They carry weight in a way that emotional outbursts simply do not. When someone screams accusations in public, you factor in the anger. You discount the emotion. You tell yourself they are hurt, they are lashing out, they are not thinking clearly. But when someone responds to a question about their ex-wife's potential royal marriage with the calm, confident, almost amused tone of someone watching a chess player execute a move they predicted 3 turns ago, that lands very, very differently. It suggested Trevor Engelson understood something about Meghan Markle's personality, her drive, and her approach to life and ambition that the rest of the world was only beginning to catch up with. And the internet immediately started asking, what did he know? What did he see during those 7 years that gave him that level of certainty? Was it admiration? Was it something else entirely? Did he witness something during their relationship that showed him exactly who Meghan Markle was at her core? The relentless drive, the focused ambition, the absolute refusal to settle for anything less than the life she envisioned for herself? Some people heard those 3 words and thought, that's a compliment. That's a man acknowledging that his ex-wife is a force of nature. Others heard something more complicated. Something that hinted at a relationship dynamic that the outside world never fully saw. Something that might explain why a 7-year relationship and a 2-year marriage ended the way it apparently did. Either interpretation keeps leading back to the same place. Trevor Engelson knew. Before the rest of the world caught on, he knew what Harry reportedly felt when the words reached him. Now we arrive at the part of this story that reportedly pushed everything from online curiosity into something far more personally charged. Because these 3 words did not just trend on social media. According to discussions circulating widely across royal commentary platforms, the resurfacing of Trevor's response and the widespread interpretations that followed reportedly reached Prince Harry in a way that left him deeply unsettled. Think about what it means for Harry to hear this. Think about where he stands in the story. Harry has spent years publicly defending Meghan. He left the royal family for her. He walked away from centuries of institutional expectation, from his brother, from a working relationship with his father, from everything the monarchy represented and promised. And he did it because he believed in Meghan, in their relationship, and in the life they were building together. He has described her in interviews as his partner, his anchor, the person who makes everything make sense. And then a 3-word text message from her ex-husband surfaces, and the entire internet starts debating whether Meghan Markle's marriage to a prince was always less about love and more about a carefully executed life strategy. Can you feel the weight of that? It's not that the words were hostile. That's the critical detail that makes this so emotionally complicated. If Trevor had said something angry, something bitter, something overtly accusatory, it would have been easy to dismiss. It would have been easy for Harry to wave it away as the scorned ex-husband acting out of resentment. But, "Oh, she'll close" is not resentment. It is not bitterness. It sounds disturbingly like observation, like knowledge, like the kind of thing someone says when they have seen the pattern play out before and they are simply watching it repeat. And the connection to Archie, the specific reason Harry is reportedly most shaken, goes even deeper than the surface debate about Meghan's ambitions, because the conversations that have spiraled out of Trevor's resurfaced words have begun pulling Harry's children into the frame. Online commentators and royal watchers have started asking uncomfortable questions about the Sussex family's public image management, about the choices being made regarding Archie and Lilibet's visibility, their titles, their identities, and whether those choices reflect the same strategic, forward-calculating mindset that Trevor apparently recognized in Meghan years before Harry ever met her. Whether those questions are fair or unfair, whether they are grounded in evidence or pure speculation, is a debate that continues to rage. But the fact that the name Archie has entered this conversation, that Trevor Engelson's private text has become fuel for questions about Harry's children, is reportedly the dimension of this story that Harry finds most deeply personal. Because for Harry, the protection of his children is not a PR calculation. It is, by his own repeated admission, the most fundamental commitment of his life. He grew up as a child, under the most intense public scrutiny imaginable. A child who lost his mother, in part because of the relentless pursuit of that scrutiny. And the idea that questions about his children's well-being and identity are being framed through the lens of his wife's ex-husband's decade-old text message is the kind of thing that hits at a level that is almost impossible to defend against publicly. You cannot issue a statement about a text message. You cannot hold a press conference to address 3 words. You cannot control the narrative when the narrative is built entirely on implication, interpretation, and the accumulated weight of everything people already believe. And that powerlessness, that inability to grab hold of the story and shape it, is something Harry knows from the deepest, most personal part of his experience. The 15 years that made the 3 words matter. Here is something that deserves far more attention than it typically receives in these discussions. The reason Trevor Engelson's 3 words carry such extraordinary weight is not just because of what they say, it is because of what came before them. 15 years of absolute, disciplined, deliberate silence. Think about the restraint that requires. Think about every moment over those 15 years where the temptation to speak must have been enormous. When the news broke that Meghan was dating Prince Harry, silence. When the royal wedding was broadcast to a global audience of millions, silence.
Well, before Meghan Markle was a blushing bride-to-be, she was a star on Suits, a popular show on our sister network USA.
When the Sussexes sat down with Oprah Winfrey and delivered bombshell after bombshell about the royal family, silence. When the Netflix documentary dropped, when the memoir Spare was published, when Harry delivered interview after interview laying bare the most intimate details of his life inside the monarchy. Through all of it, Trevor Engelson said nothing. He did not reach out to journalists. He did not sell his story. He did not appear on panels or podcasts to offer his perspective on the woman he had been married to. He just lived his life. A quiet, private, apparently very fulfilling life. He remarried in 2019, a woman named Tracy Kurland. They have built a family together, welcoming children, and the kind of domestic stability that suggests a man who genuinely moved on, not performatively, not for public consumption, but actually, genuinely, moved forward. That context is everything. That is why the 3 words hit so hard. Because they did not come from a man who had been nursing grievances in public, sharpening his observations, positioning himself for a comeback moment in the cultural conversation. They came from a private text message, shared years later, from a man who apparently never intended to be part of this story at all. And that is precisely what makes the internet unable to stop talking about it. Because authentic silence followed by unguarded words carries truth in a way that calculated public statements simply cannot. What Trevor Engelson said to Bethany Frankel was not said for an audience. It was not crafted for impact. It was, by all accounts, just a man responding to a direct question with the most honest answer he had. The honesty is what stings. Who was Meghan before the world watched? To truly understand why Trevor's words carry such resonance, You have to spend some time understanding what Trevor actually knew that the rest of the world did not. Because his relationship with Meghan Markle spans a period that is almost entirely invisible to the public narrative. The years before fame, before global recognition, before the carefully managed public persona that came with royal adjacency and then royal conflict. The Meghan Markle that Trevor Engelson knew was an actress working enormously hard to establish herself in one of the most competitive environments on Earth. She was attending auditions, navigating rejection, taking small roles, building her resume piece by piece, and trying to figure out what her future looked like in an industry that chews through talented people with alarming regularity. There were no crown jewels. There was no Netflix deal. There was no Oprah interview. There was just a young woman with the enormous amount of drive and an equally enormous amount of uncertainty about whether that drive would eventually be rewarded. Trevor saw that version of Meghan. He saw her in the unglamorous early chapters, when the outcome was still completely unknown, when the life she eventually built was not even imaginable. And somewhere in those 7 years of watching her navigate that world, the auditions, the setbacks, the incremental progress, the relentless forward momentum, he apparently developed a very clear sense of who she was at her core. A person who does not stop. A person who identifies what she wants and moves toward it with absolute clarity. A person who, when she eventually lands in the right room, closes. Now here is the question you have to sit with. Does that description sound like someone you admire? Or does it sound like a warning? And does the answer to that question say more about Meghan, or about the person answering it? That is the tension at the heart of this entire debate. And it is a tension that has no clean resolution, because it depends entirely on what you believe ambition means. Whether you see relentless drive as a virtue or a red flag, as inspiring or calculating, as admirable or alarming, says everything about where you stand in this conversation. And that is exactly why this conversation never ends. The mirror and the mystery. What does silence really say? One of the most fascinating dimensions of Trevor Engelson's story is the way his silence has become its own kind of statement. In a world where everyone speaks, where everyone shares, performs, broadcasts, and narrates their inner life for public consumption, a man who genuinely refuses to engage becomes almost mythological. He never wrote a book, and he could have. The book would have sold. He never gave an interview, and he could have. The interview would have aired. He never appeared on a podcast to share his truth about his marriage to the woman who went on to become one of the most discussed people in the world. He just didn't. And in the absence of anything from him directly, the internet has done what the internet always does. It has filled the silence with interpretation, with projection, with narrative. Every small detail available about Trevor Engelson has been examined, analyzed, and incorporated into a story about what his quiet life really means in contrast to the extraordinarily loud life that Meghan and Harry continue to lead. Some observers look at Trevor's post-divorce life, the remarriage, the children, the privacy, the apparent contentment, and see it as a quiet form of commentary. A man who stepped back from the noise and found something real in the stillness. Others look at exactly the same evidence and see a man who was simply not equipped for the level of ambition that Meghan carried, and who perhaps found peace in a smaller, quieter version of the life she was always determined to transcend. Both interpretations exist simultaneously, both continue to circulate, and neither can be definitively proven or disproven, because Trevor Engelson himself refuses to come down on either side. That restraint is remarkable. It is also, in its own strange way, one of the loudest things he has ever done. The Archie dimension, why this gets personal. For Harry, we keep returning to Archie, and we need to address why directly, because this is the dimension of the story that elevates it from celebrity gossip into something with genuine emotional stakes. Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's decision to step back from royal duties was driven, at least in significant part, by their desire to protect their children from the kind of media exposure and institutional pressure that Harry experienced growing up. He has spoken about this with raw, unguarded emotion on multiple occasions. The idea that his children would be subject to the same crushing scrutiny that he believes contributed to some of the most painful experiences of his own childhood. That was not something he was willing to accept. Archie's birth, Archie's christening, the decision around Archie's title, the decision to keep Archie's life largely private in a way that is unusual for royal-adjacent children. All of these decisions have been framed by Harry and Meghan as fundamentally about protection, about giving their son the childhood Harry never fully had. And now, Trevor Engelson's resurfaced words have triggered a wave of online commentary that reaches directly into that tender space. Because the conversations that have branched out from "oh, she'll close" have begun asking uncomfortable questions about every public move the Sussexes have made, including the moves involving their children. Commentators and critics are applying the lens of Trevor's observation, the idea of Meghan as someone who executes with strategic precision, to questions about why Archie and Lilibet appear in certain contexts, why their images are shared at certain moments, why their public visibility seems to track in particular ways. Whether those questions are fair is almost beside the point at this stage. The point is that they exist. They are circulating. They are being asked loudly and publicly in spaces Harry cannot ignore. And they touch the one dimension of his life that he has made clear is non-negotiable: the safety, privacy, and well-being of his children. That is why this particular controversy reportedly landed on Harry with the weight it did. Not because Trevor said something outrageous, but because 3 quiet words opened a door to questions about his family that no public statement can adequately close. The online reaction and why it won't stop spreading. If you have spent any time in royal commentary spaces, entertainment forums, or social media discussions over the past several months, you will have encountered this story in one form or another. And what is striking is not just the volume of discussion. It is the intensity. The reaction to Trevor Engelson's resurfaced words has been genuinely polarized in a way that goes far beyond the usual supporter/critic binary that defines most royal-adjacent conversations. On one side, there are viewers and commentators who hear, "oh, she'll close," and immediately interpret it as confirmation of what they have always believed: that Meghan Markle's ascent through Hollywood, through royalty, and through the media industrial complex she now navigates was always a performance of strategy rather than an organic unfolding of life. They see Trevor's words as the testimony of an insider, a man who had the clearest possible view into who Meghan Markle really is, confirming what they suspected. On the other side, there are people who look at the same 3 words and see something entirely different: a misogynistic framing of female ambition as something sinister, a man reducing a complex, multidimensional person to a sales transaction, and an internet that has always been desperate to find a way to diminish Meghan Markle no matter how thin the evidence. Both camps are passionate, both camps are loud, and the argument between them keeps the story alive in perpetuity, because every time the "oh, she'll close" interpretation is advanced, the counter-reaction amplifies it further. This is the mechanics of how a private text message becomes a viral controversy. It is not because the words are extraordinary. It is because they land in the middle of an ongoing cultural argument where every piece of evidence is immediately weaponized by both sides, and the act of weaponizing it just generates more heat, more clicks, more discussion, and more reach. What do you think when you hear those 3 words? Do they sound like a man who respected his ex-wife's drive? Or do they sound like something more complicated? The answer to that question might reveal more about your own assumptions than you realize. The bigger picture, past relationships, and the stories we tell about them. There is something worth stepping back and acknowledging in the middle of all of this, because the story of Trevor Engelson and Meghan Markle is in many ways not really about Trevor Engelson and Meghan Markle at all. It is about what we do with the past when the present becomes overwhelming. When public figures live their lives at the level of visibility that Meghan and Harry do, when every decision, every interview, every business venture, every family choice becomes fodder for global debate, there is an almost irresistible pull to reach back into the past for context, for explanation, for the missing piece that finally makes everything make sense. Trevor Engelson represents that missing piece for a lot of people. He is the chapter that came before the chapters everyone already knows. He is the person who was there when the story was still being written in private, before the cameras arrived, before the narrative got locked into the shape that the world now knows it in. And that makes him, involuntarily, enormously valuable to people trying to understand Meghan Markle in ways that public statements and polished interviews cannot fully satisfy. But here is the thing we should all sit with honestly. Trevor Engelson knew one version of Meghan Markle in one chapter of her life, under one set of circumstances. That version is real. His observations are real. His perspective has genuine value. But a 7-year relationship that ended in 2013 does not give anyone a complete or unchanging truth about who a person is in 2026. People change. Circumstances change. The pressures of extraordinary fame and extraordinary public scrutiny do things to people that ordinary life never could. The Meghan Markle who was navigating Hollywood auditions in 2004 is not necessarily the same person as the Meghan Markle who is navigating Netflix deals and royal controversies in 2026. And to pretend otherwise, to treat Trevor's window into her early life as a master key that unlocks her whole identity, is to engage in exactly the kind of reductive thinking that makes these conversations more satisfying than they are accurate. And yet, we keep going back, because the questions feel real, because the tension feels unresolved, because somewhere in the gap between who Meghan was when Trevor knew her and who she has become, there is a story that none of us have the full version of. The question that will not go away. And so we arrive at the place this conversation always eventually reaches, the place where the evidence runs out and the speculation begins, the place where everything we know about Trevor Engelson, about Meghan Markle, about 3 words in a private text message, about a marriage that ended, and a life that pivoted, and a royal saga that consumed the world, all of it collapses into a single, unanswerable question. Did Trevor Engelson understand something about Meghan Markle that Prince Harry, for all his love, for all his sacrifice, for all his extraordinary commitment, simply was not prepared to hear? Or is this entire narrative the product of an internet that is always looking for a way to rewrite the story, always looking for the hidden hand behind the curtain, always looking for the man behind the woman who will confirm our most comfortable suspicions? The honest answer is that we do not know. We cannot know. Trevor Engelson has not issued a statement. He has not given an interview. He has not clarified, expanded, or contextualized those 3 words. He remains exactly where he has always been, outside the noise, inside a private life, raising a family, building a career, and apparently completely unbothered by the fact that a decade-old text message has turned him into one of the most discussed figures in royal-adjacent media. That composure is its own kind of statement, and it is, at this point, its own kind of power. Because in a world where everyone reaches for the microphone, where silence is seen as weakness and visibility is treated as currency, a man who can watch the entire world debate 3 words he said in private and simply say nothing, in response is a man who understands something about power that most people in this story have not figured out yet. Let's bring this home. Because at the end of the day, the reason this story keeps spreading, keeps evolving, and keeps pulling millions of people into the conversation is not because of Trevor Engelson. It is not because of Bethany Frankel, or the text message, or the 3 words. It is because of what those 3 words ask us to decide about the people at the center of one of the most compelling, divisive, and emotionally charged public narratives of the last decade. Was Meghan Markle always exactly who Trevor Engelson suggests she was? A woman who saw an opportunity and closed? And if so, is that a story about extraordinary ambition, the kind we celebrate in men without a second thought? Or is it something else? Was Harry's love a story of a man choosing the woman he adored above everything else in his life? Or was he, as some of the darker interpretations of "Oh, she'll close" suggest, the deal that got closed? And what about Archie, growing up in the middle of a story this large, this loud, and this unresolved? What version of these conversations will he one day encounter about his own parents' history? These are not easy questions. They are not clean questions. They do not have comfortable answers. But they are the questions that millions of people are asking right now, in real time, across every platform, in every language, in every corner of the world where Meghan and Harry's story has reached. What do you think? Let us know in the comments below. Do you think Trevor Engelson's words were a quiet compliment to a woman he once loved? A subtle warning that history eventually validated? Or is this entire conversation one enormous exercise in reading meaning into a moment that was never meant to carry any? Drop your thoughts, share your perspective. And if this kind of deep dive storytelling is what you come here for, you already know what to do. Like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that notification bell so you never miss a story that goes this deep. The comment section is open, and we have a feeling this one is going to be very, very loud.